Oh man, what could be better than some slow-cooked beef ribs with a silky, savory, succulent sauce? Yep, you got it. We are cooking up some red wine braised beef short ribs. Hey guys, thanks for joining us. If this is your first time tuning in, let us know you're out there by giving us a big thumbs up below, and then hit that subscribe button to make sure you never miss a video. Now, let's start cooking. Before we start cooking, let's talk about what braising is. Braising simply means cooking slowly in liquid. So in this case, we're doing some short ribs, and we are going to braise those in a red wine and beef stock mixture. So let's talk about the ingredients. Of course, we've got some very nice short ribs here. These are cut a little bit larger than what we normally would get in the United States, or at least what I normally would get. And so probably it's only going to take really one per person. But the process of braising involves seasoning your protein, and then we are going to sear that quickly to brown it all over in a pan with some oil, and then we'll remove it. And we will then, an important step at this point is if there's a lot of excess oil in the pan, we will take that oil out, we'll add a little bit of butter to the pan, and then we'll add our mirepoix. And mirepoix is simply a mixture of vegetables that you are using to braise with. In this case, we've got onions, carrots, celery, and I think I've got some garlic somewhere. And so we'll get my garlic in here. And then we are going to, once we do that, we just cook those vegetables until they're nice and soft. And then we will deglaze the pan with the red wine. And then at that point, we'll put our meat back in, and we will let it cook for probably 15 minutes or so to kind of reduce the red wine. We want to increase the intensity of it, and we're using a dry red wine today. And once we reduce that, then we'll go in with our stock, our beef stock. And basically when you're braising, you want to have the liquid come up about a little bit more than 3/4 of the way up on the meat. You don't want it to completely cover the meat. You don't want to just drown it in the braising liquid. So once we add our liquid, we will then add our Bouquet Garni. In this case, we've got a Bouquet Garni that has some fresh rosemary, some fresh thyme, a bay leaf, and I'm going to wrap that in this leek leaf. And we'll, you could use cheesecloth if you wanted, just to keep that from coming apart and floating around in your mixture. So that'll be our process. The first thing we want to do is to make sure our meat is nice and trim. And I've already trimmed all these pieces. The only thing I wanted to show you is that, if you can see that, there's a very thin little film here. And this little film is something that's not going to break down. It's not fat, but it's not going to break down. So what we'll do is remove that. And to do that, you simply take your knife, and you want quite a sharp knife, and you just slide your knife underneath that, and you just slowly cut that back, and you see how it's pretty much coming off in one piece. And that's how we want to trim this. And once you get that started, you could actually take your knife, and it's kind of hard to do it away from you, but you could take your knife, and my knife is actually up against that film, and we will just kind of trim that just like that. And that's it for that. And the next thing we'll do then is season our meat with salt and pepper, and then we'll get started braising. We have trimmed our meat of the silver skin. That's what that skin is called, by the way. It's called silver skin. And now we're just going to season it. And you might notice our meat I've patted it dry. So that's one thing you want to make sure, is that the meat is dry before you get ready to brown it, because that liquid will keep it from browning. It'll just kind of stew a little bit in the pot if it's not dry. But we're looking for that browning, and you know, make sure you pay attention to this step because it's an important step, and it's where the flavor gets developed. So we're just going to liberally season this with some nice pepper and just turn them over. Nice salt and pepper all around. And we'll finish getting that seasoned up here in just a second, but let's just talk about the rest of our ingredients. So once we get this seasoned, again, we'll sear it, and then we'll remove the meat, and then the rest of our ingredients, our onions, carrots, and celery, our mirepoix, we'll put those in. And then a couple of more ingredients that we have are, we've got some tomato paste here. And this tomato paste is what is actually going to help our sauce to thicken up. So actually, before we deglaze the pan with the red wine, we'll put some tomato paste in there. And it's kind of like making a roux that you would use with flour and butter. You're using that to actually thicken up your final mixture. So we want to get that cooked out and stirred in very well. And then after this is cooked for probably an hour and a half or so, we will then throw in our tomatoes. We've got fresh tomatoes. You can use canned tomatoes, in which case you could throw those in a little bit later. But again, it's just for color and for texture, and that little acidity will add a lot to our dish. So let's finish getting it seasoned up, and then we'll start searing. While our cocotte, we've got a cocotte or Dutch oven, while that's heating up, I'm going to just show you the best way to tie up your herbs, and we are using, like I said, a leek leaf. You could use some cheesecloth and to tie these up as well, but this is called a Bouquet Garni. So just roll your herbs in that leaf, just like that. And what we'll do now is just come down part of the way, and we're kind of tearing the outside of that leek leaf, and we'll just go around just like this. And we end up at the opposite end and just tie around there. And we basically are just going to tie this off, and this will make it easy for us to remove this, because this is not something that you want to eat at the end of cooking. So that is how you tie up your Bouquet Garni, and we'll just trim it, and that is done, and it's ready to go. Again, we're using a cast iron cocotte or Dutch oven, so I've got it heating up. And now it's quite hot. I can tell it's quite hot. I'm going to go ahead and add some grapeseed oil to this. And this is just for us to get our meat seared. And it's already smoking. So, and you know, once that starts smoking and your oil has a little bit of a shimmer to it, that's when you know it's ready. And we're using quite a large cocotte here because we want to be able to sear this meat without it overlapping. So everything needs to be face down in the pot. So we'll put our meat in, and if we need to do this in stages, we certainly will. So right now we're looking good, and I'm going meat down first. So we'll stick with what we've got right there, and then we'll just make sure this meat gets nice and brown all around on all sides. And we'll just use our, you know, once it gets brown, we'll turn it on its side, and you can see already, look at that, it's very nice. The skillet's very hot, and that's what we want. So let's work on getting these browned, and we'll go from there. We've been searing this meat now for probably about 10 minutes, and I just want to make sure that you understand we have kept this on a high heat. And so what we want to do is just make sure that everything is very well browned on all sides. So we started on one side, we flipped it to another side, and then we flipped it to the sides. And for example, this one's ready. It's good to go. And now I've got them on the ends, and so that's gonna pretty much do it for getting our meat seared. But just want to make sure that, you know, a lot of people are afraid to keep their heat up high. You need to keep it up quite high while you're doing this process, because you really want to make sure, say that one for example, I need to sear that a little bit more. You really want to make sure that you're rendering all of that fat out of the meat, and because that's where your flavor is. Look at that. I mean, you know, if it wasn't such a dense muscle and a dense piece of meat, that would taste fantastic. But you can't eat that because it's not cooked yet. And as we take these out, we can now lower our heat just a little bit when we've just got a couple pieces left. But that is what we want to do, and that's how you want to make sure your meat is all seared. So we'll take those out, and I'm going to drain the excess oil out of here, and we'll move to the next step. We have now removed our meat pieces, and I have drained the pot of the excess oil. As a matter of fact, I've just put that in some Pyrex, and this is great to just save. And what you want to do is strain this, and you can put it in a mason jar or something like that, and just save it in the refrigerator for the next time you want to do some potatoes, or anytime you want to sear something. It's great. It's beef fat's what it is. So, or the next time you're making, what's the bread that we have in England?
Yorkshire puddings.
Yorkshire puddings. Yeah, great for Yorkshire puddings. So now we've got let's go ahead and put a little bit more butter in there, because what we're going to do now is just add our aromatics. We've got our onions, carrots, and celery. And I've got one big fat clove of garlic, so we'll just smash that. And I'm just going to peel it right over the pan, and we'll put that right in with the rest of our mirepoix. And what we're looking for with this is just to cook it until it's soft and translucent. We are just really sweating these vegetables. And so what we need to do now is just, we'll get those stirred around and let them cook for a little bit. Then we will add our tomato paste into it. We added just a little bit of salt to our vegetables, just to, that assists it in sweating. It just helps bring the moisture out. So our vegetables have been cooking, and I've been pretty continuously stirring them for about the last 4 minutes or so. And our next step will be to add our tomato paste. And I'm going to do probably 2 tablespoons of tomato paste in here. And again, like I said earlier, you know, when you're adding tomato paste, it's just like when you're adding roux to butter, or adding flour to butter to make a roux. You want to make sure that you cook that butter out, you cook the rawness out of it. And it's the same principle with tomato puree or tomato concentrate, because it is quite acidic, and you want to be able to break that down and incorporate it very well into everything. And I'm telling you, everything we're doing right now, do not rush it, because this is our heat is on low at this point, or it's probably medium low. We've got a large pot here. We want to cook this thoroughly, and because what we're doing is just building up layers and layers of flavor. And what we'll do now is deglaze our pan with our red wine. And that is pretty much an entire bottle of red wine. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and bring that up. So it's about 750 milliliters of red wine. And now I'm going to bring the heat up to high, because what we want to do is we want to get this boiling and making sure that we get everything that was on the bottom of the pot loose, which it already has. You can just tell by the way how easy it is to stir around here. So we're going to bring this up, let that come to the boil, and then we'll put our meat in and we'll let it simmer for about 15 or 20 minutes to reduce a little bit. Our wine is cooking away, and it's come up to a little bit of a boil here. And you know, one of the reasons we want to do that, of course, is to cook the wine flavor out. We don't really want the taste of wine in the sauce, but reducing it helps to cook that wine, the alcohol out, and it helps to intensify the depthness of flavor. But you'll notice all of this, you know, white stuff that's coming up on top. I like to go ahead and, you know, you don't have to, but I like to go ahead and purify my sauce by removing that. It's just really, I call it impurities. It's just proteins that are being brought up to the top. And in order for us to have a nice clear sauce, we'll take that out at this point. And so now what we'll do, I mean, you're not going to get all of it out, but we'll get most of it out. And now our wine is probably reduced by about 1/3. So we will go ahead and add we're going to go ahead and add our meat back in. And I'm just going to I'm putting it bone side down, because that's where the flavor is and that's where the toughness is. And we've got the perfect size cocotte for these pieces. And man alive, the aroma of this is just unbelievable. And that is the look that you want. And now we've got that wine in there. It's been reducing. And I've prepared 1 liter of beef stock. And again, you could use beef stock, you could use chicken stock, you could use water at this point. I just think that, you know, we're making a beef dish. I like being able to use beef stock in it. And we don't want to go too much more than that. That's really all we want in terms of covering that up. And now we'll put our Bouquet Garni in. And let's make sure that Bouquet Garni is down inside everything. We're going to bring this up to a boil, and then we'll turn it down to a simmer and we'll cover it. And at that point, we'll just let it cook for probably 1.5 hours, and then we'll come back and check it. After about 10 minutes, everything's come up to a nice heavy simmer. So I'm just going to continue to purify our mixture just a little bit. And once I do this, I'm probably going to add a little bit more of our beef stock back into this. But just getting some of that out. And now that we've got that part done, we'll add just a little bit more of our stock to it. And we're now going to cover it and just let it go over a low heat and just a mild simmer for about 1.5 hours, and then we'll check it. Our short ribs have been going now for about 2 hours. We're going to go ahead and check them, and I can tell you that these are quite thick short ribs, so they're probably going to take a little bit more time than what you normally are used to with short ribs in the States, because they tend to be a little bit smaller short ribs and less meaty. So they look great. The sauce looks fantastic, but I can tell you we're probably going to be going for at least another 1.5 hours. So this is a great time now to add our tomatoes, and we'll go ahead and add those in and get them stirred around, and that will just add to that great tasting sauce that we're going to have. And with our sauce today, what we're going to do is we have our mirepoix. You could do this 2 different ways. You could serve the sauce as is, or you could blitz the sauce in a blender, just blend it up and serve it over kind of like a gravy. In our case, what we're going to do is we're going to blitz the sauce, but then we're going to strain all of the solids out, because we want a a clearer sauce, a truer sauce that we'll be able to spoon over our short ribs. So our tomatoes are in, and we're just going to leave that on a nice simmer, and we'll put our lid back on, and we'll check it again in another hour. Hey everybody, it's Walter from Artistic Gourmet Adventures. My wife Kim and I own this unique small group tour company where we host groups of 6 to 12 guests for 1-week luxury adventures in beautiful locations throughout Europe and the United States. I have the privilege of being the adventure chef, creating and preparing daily gourmet meals for our guests. So, in this video series, from our cozy home kitchen here in the beautiful Loire Valley of France, we will demonstrate a wide variety of recipes, from culinary classics to originals, as well as covering professional kitchen techniques for the home chef. For more information on Artistic Gourmet Adventures, check our website, linked in the description below. We've been going for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I think that our beef is ready to go. Let's check it. And what we're gonna do is, oh yeah, look at that. Oops, it's pulled away from the bone, and that is very nice. It's fork tender. So we're gonna take these out, and I'm not even gonna test it yet for flavor because the sauce is gonna be such a big part of that. But look at that, look how nice and tender that is. We will take these out, and then we will start making our sauce. And just a reminder, you want to make sure and take out your Bouquet Garni. So that is, that's the last thing we'll take out. We'll just put that right over here, and we'll set that aside. You can set it in the oven if you want to just keep it warm. But what we're going to do now is we are going to use our immersible blender, and look at that sauce, just beautiful. All right, so we're going to use our immersible blender, and we're just going to blend this sauce. And then once we blend it, we are going to run it through our conical strainer and strain out the solids. So we'll get that all blended, and then we'll strain it. We have blitzed our sauce with the immersible blender, and I'm telling you what, originally I thought we would strain this sauce because a lot of times there's, solids that don't necessarily break down that well. This sauce broke down so well that I'm not going to strain it because look at the beautiful consistency of the sauce. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it over a high fire, and we're going to let this reduce just a little bit, thicken up just a little bit, and that'll be it for our sauce. Now the other thing you could do with this is if you had some veal stock or some veal glass, you could add that into that, and that would help to thicken it up. What that does is the collagen in the veal stock serves as a thickener. You could also use just a little bit of cornstarch mixed with some water if you wanted. So you could make a little slurry using some cornstarch and water, and then just whisk that in. Make sure the water is cool water. And to do that, you would just take probably, for this amount of sauce, I would probably, put in maybe a tablespoon of cornstarch, and then just add a little bit of cold water in there until it makes it a slurry. And a slurry is just like a thick, it's still very liquidy, but just a little bit thicker than water. And then you would just start this boiling, and you would whisk that slurry in, and that would thicken up your sauce very easily. So you can either do it the way I'm doing it by bringing it to the boil and letting it reduce, or you can mix in the cornstarch. Our sauce is now thick and really nice and just very luscious. It's nice and smooth, okay, and thick. So at this point, What I want to do is taste the sauce for kind of a final seasoning, and we'll adjust that. It's good, and it's very good. Just needs a little bit more salt. So we'll go ahead and throw in just a little bit more salt to that, and not much at all. And I think maybe a little bit of black pepper, and then everything else will do the talking. We're going to be serving this today with some very nice polenta, and this sauce over the meat with the polenta is going to be extremely tasty. We've got our sauce where we want it, seasonings wise, so now what we're going to do is just put our meat back in the sauce and let that just kind of roll around in that nice sauce, get very nice and coated, and then we'll be ready to serve this up. So I've got the sauce seasoned, and I'm just going to leave it over a very low flame, and once we are ready to plate this up, it will be ready. We are ready to plate up our red wine braised short ribs, and so to start that, we are going to serve it with some freshly made creamy polenta, and we will have the recipe for this polenta on. We'll do a video for you on that as well. But there's our polenta base, and let's add our beef to it. And let me find a really nice piece. Oh, I like that with the bone. So let's see, let's put that right there. Ooh, very nice. Okay. And let's go over with a little bit of our sauce. This yummy, yummy sauce that we made. And let's just pour that right over. Look at that sauce. Beautiful. A little bit more. Excellent. And now we're going to finish this with a gremolata. And if you don't know what a gremolata is, it's just a very fresh mixture of it's fresh garlic, and in this case I've used a half a clove of garlic. You don't need to use a whole lot of garlic, but a half a clove of about a medium-sized piece of garlic. So I've just minced that very finely, and then I very finely chopped some fresh parsley, and it needs to be fresh parsley, and Italian parsley is nice for this. And that, and then some lemon zest. I've zested about a half a lemon, and that's all it is. And it just really brings a nice freshness and brightness to this dish. So there we have it, our red wine braised short ribs over creamy polenta and finished with a gremolata. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more, give us a thumbs up below and hit that subscribe button, it's free. And ring the bell if you want to be notified as soon as we release a new video. Also, let us know in the comments if you have any special recipe requests. We really appreciate you tuning in. See you next time.